Let's start with the most British thing imaginable, the electric kettle. In my line of work, it's genuinely not uncommon to receive messages from British subscribers asking why Americans don't use them. On the other hand, it's equally common to receive messages from Americans insisting they do. But
Wait. My friends, we have to settle that debate. Do you guys have electric kettles or not? Because that thing is so common here. That blows my mind. I mean, he's talking about the UK, but I'm talking about Portugal. You find those everywhere. It's almost as common as, for example, a microwave. Today I'll be reacting to American inventions that changed the world forever. My friends, I'm super excited for this one, and I really wonder what those are. But before I go into that, let me ask you for one thing. If you can leave a like, thank you so much. It's the best way to show support. Now, if you can subscribe, well, in that case, forget about it. You make my day. Have that in consideration. Link for the original video in my description, and let's play it.
America has proven pretty good at inventing things, so much
yeah.
so that in part 1 of this series, I said this. If this video does well, there will definitely be a part 2, and if it tanks, then just forget I said that. Well, thanks to you.
I guess the video did very well. My friends, I reacted to that video, I believe a couple of months ago, and the thing that ended up surprising me the most, and I have to be honest here, was that Americans ended up inventing ketchup. I had no idea about that. And to me, maybe because I love ketchup, that's so damn impressive. Internet, that's crazy. GPS, that's amazing. Ketchup, that's a different level of invention.
It didn't tank, so we're doing part 2. In part 1, we uncovered how things like the mobile phone and the internet, both American inventions, ended up influencing British life. And today, we're back for more. Can I do that line again? We're back for more. We're back. I don't know how to do that. If you're subscribed to this channel, thank you. If not, do that now.
My friends, do it for me.
In the meantime, here are more American inventions that changed Britain forever.
Okay. Wait. Electric kettles. Okay, this is a crazy invention, my friends. Those things are everywhere.
Let's start with the most British thing imaginable, the electric kettle. In my line of work, it's genuinely not uncommon to receive messages from British subscribers asking why Americans don't use them. On the other hand, it's equally common to receive messages from Americans insisting they do. But
wait. My friends, we have to settle that debate. Do you guys have electric kettles or not? Because that thing is so common here. That blows my mind. I mean, he's talking about the UK, but I'm talking about Portugal. You find those everywhere. It's almost as common as, for example, a microwave. Because it's very versatile. You can do coffee, tea. Wow, that's crazy. My friends, I really want to know. Please leave me a comment if you have one.
On the other hand, it's equally common to receive messages from Americans insisting they do. But having lived extensively in both countries, I've found that the difference is this. An American home without one is normal. A British home without one is a mistake. An interesting turn of events then, given that the electric kettle was invented right here in Chicago. While kettles themselves date back...
Wait, this is crazy. So Americans... in this case in Chicago, end up creating this, and you guys don't use this, and the entire world uses this. What is the logic?
Centuries. The electric version was invented in 1891 by the Chicago-based Carpenter Electric Company. Sadly, this first incarnation wasn't very good because the water took 10 minutes to boil. Imagine trying to pour a cuppa during the adverts.
Yeah, that's
Even
crazy.
Though the electric kettle was invented here, it couldn't fully realise its potential in a country that prefers ground coffee over tea. Which is where Britain comes in. In 1893, the British firm Crompton & Co. began featuring a similarly primitive electric kettle in their catalogues. Over time, the technology improved and electric kettles became just as common in British kitchens as instant coffee.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. If someone ended up asking me, where do you think electric kettles end up getting invented, I would actually say the UK. Because of the tea connection, you know, because everything related with tea, I know they have a control, you know, they are basically... In terms of tea, they are equal to America in terms of peanut butter. They are the best.
Not to mention these. In 1908, a New York tea merchant named Thomas Sullivan began sending tea samples to...
No way. No. I'm gonna fact check this. No way Americans end up creating tea bags. What the hell is the British doing? They are known for this, my friends.
In 1908, a New York tea merchant named Thomas Sullivan began sending tea samples to customers in small silk bags. Rather than emptying the tea into the pot, the customers, so goes the story, dunked the entire bag in water, and just like that, the tea bag was born. Except it wasn't, because the first tea bags were recorded as early as 1903. In fact, both inventions share a surprisingly Midwestern origin story. Imagine if I told you before today that the electric kettle and the tea bag were invented just 90 miles apart.
No, my friends, this video is blowing my mind. The British are known for the tea thing, and the Americans end up creating the tea bag and the electric kettle. What the hell are the British doing, with all the respect, my friend? Okay, this is actually fantastic. Man, America, when it comes to innovation, I would never guess this type of stuff in 1 million years. Wow.
Apart. You might picture something like Manchester and Birmingham in the UK. Few would confidently state that the electric kettle was a product of Chicago, and fewer still that tea bags began life in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's right, the first patent, or patent as they say in America, for a tea.
My friends, if I was American, I would be so proud right now. Look, we drink coffee, but guess what? Even the tea stuff, we are the ones that, yeah. Take that, British.
Leaf holder was granted in 1903 to Milwaukee inventors Roberta Lawson and Mary McLaren. They were sold commercially in America during the first half of the 20th century, and by the 1950s their popularity began to spread around the world. But when British companies like Tetley tried pushing them on the British people, the response was lukewarm. That was a tea-based pun. In fact, as recently as 1965, only 7% of British tea drinkers reported making their tea this way. Today, that number stands at 96%. So much for tradition. Of course, another invention that America...
There is an expression here that is like you try to stop the wind with your hands. Does not work, I think this applies very well to nowadays AI. People are saying, oh, AI needs to have some type of control, is killing a lot of jobs. My friends, you cannot stop the wind with hands. It's eventually you will give up.
Gave the world was 24-hour news.
Refrigerators.
The refrigerator, the magic cold box that stops your milk from becoming a biological weapon. Though the concept of keeping food cold has existed for centuries, think ice houses and the occasional shady underground cheese vault, the modern refrigerator as we know it was patented in 1913 by an American named Fred W. Wolf. I promise that's his real name. Now, America, in its relentless quest to make life easier and perhaps less smelly, took to the refrigerator like a duck to water. Or to ice. By the end of the Great Depression, nearly half of American households had one, allowing people to stockpile their food, chill their beverages, and reduce...
You know what? The electric kettle and the tea bag, impressive. But this one, let's be real, this is the most impressive one so far.
Their dependence on canned meat, which looks suspiciously like dog food. This was a game changer. Suddenly, fresh produce could last longer than a single afternoon. And by the 1970s, milk no longer had to be delivered daily by a man in a hat who smelled like cows. Meanwhile, across the pond, Britain took its sweet time joining the refrigeration revolution. It wasn't until after World War II, when rationing finally let up and the economy stopped resembling a particularly bleak episode of Call the Midwife, the fridges became a household staple. Even then, many British homes were still using larders well into the 1960s. And even in my lifetime, milkmen were still adorning our houses with creamy goodness. That is not a euphemism. Today, the fridge...
So, but back in the day, people, for example, to imagine they kill a pork or a cow. To preserve the meat, they end up using some type of box with salt, right? I think this was the technology back in the day.
Which allows Brits to keep sausage rolls without having to eat them all in one go. Not that I haven't done that.
Telephones. Wait. Oh, in the other one was the mobile phone. Okay, it's a bit different.
In part one, I told you that America gave us the mobile phone, but so long as you're okay with several caveats, it also invented the actual phone. What's an actual phone? You see, everyone agrees that the telephone was invented in Boston, Massachusetts by Alexander Graham Bell, a Scottish-born man who moved to Canada and then the United States. Now, I say everyone because I occasionally like to deceive my audience. Right now, Uncle Toby and about 500 other people are typing,
"Actually, Bell didn't invent the telephone. You You're forgetting about Antonio Meucci and Alicia Gray.
And it's true, Italian inventor Meucci is often credited with inventing it earlier, but his submission made no mention of electromagnetic transmission of vocal sound. What a loser. American inventor Alicia Gray filed his patent the same day as Bell, who had previously instructed his lawyers to hold off so it could be patented in Britain first. So much easier to say patented the American way. The credit was ultimately given to Bell, but in terms of this video, it doesn't matter, because all three patents were filed in the United States, and photographs from the time indicate that all three men were actually the same person in disguise. By the mid-20th century, the telephone had become a common sight in American homes, replacing the far less efficient method of yelling really loudly. Meanwhile, across the pond, many homes were telephoneless as recently as the 1970s, with installation costs often prohibitive in post-war Britain. No sooner had we mass adopted...
I mean, well, okay, a couple of things here. First of all, it's really impressive how many things Americans end up creating. Specific when we look at the things, you know, it's not random things. Internet, phone, refrigerator. I mean, this is really impactful stuff. But second is, I don't remember living in a world without phones. You know, I remember... Do I remember that? Yeah, I remember these mobile phones not being a thing. And I remember one of my uncles having a really big one. That's probably my first memory of a mobile phone. And a lot of people nowadays, the new generation, cannot even remember that. I'm a bit older. But a lot of you guys remember phones probably for a longer time that you may remember mobile phones. This makes sense, right? Them.
The landline, that it gradually became supplanted by the mobile phone. Still, nothing can remove the memory of me sitting at my parents' telephone table in 1988, and that's because I have a photograph.
Scrabble?
Scrabble, a sort of celebration of American English that would eventually be adopted by the British. Before this linguistic battleground found its way into British living rooms, it was the brainchild of Alfred Butts, a man whose name sounds suspiciously like it was placed on the board by a 15-year-old. Back in the 1930s...
So I never played that game, but that game is popular here.
Butts was an out-of-work...
When I say it's popular, I know it's a common thing.
Architect, we've all been there. It was then that he decided that the world didn't need to build with bricks, but with letters, which, to be serious, are not always structurally sound. So Scrabble was born, except at first it was called Lexico, and later Crisscross Words. It was later named Scrabble after an existing Dutch word meaning the act of scratching or scrambling for something, which I suppose is how my cat plays Scrabble. By the early 1950s, Scrabble became a household staple here in the US. This would transform how Americans viewed words, not just as a means of communication, but as a tool to humiliate my wife's cousin Chad at Christmas. Within a couple of years, it had conquered Britain, where it found a home among tea-drinking intellectuals who no doubt revelled in the fact that British spellings usually boasted more letters. On the other hand, while the British spelling of Q is a Scrabble player's dream, Americans must have suddenly felt pretty smug about the decision to spell the ISE suffix with a Z. Z.
Okay, the Scrabble thing, impressive, but we go from that to planes.
Let's talk about one of America's most uplifting inventions. Literally, because we're talking about planes. In 1903, two bicycle mechanics from Ohio, the Wright brothers, decided that cycling was just too easy. So naturally, they built a flying machine, hurtled themselves into the air, and lived to tell the tale. We've all done it. This marked the first controlled sustained plane flight in the history of human history. Over in Britain...
And this is one of the craziest inventions ever. Imagine if we didn't have this technology nowadays.
And I imagine people were initially skeptical, but soon the practicality of air travel became undeniable. During World War I, Britain saw just how effective these contraptions were. Fast forward to today, and British Airways is one of the largest international airlines in the world. Though let's be honest, Manchester Airport has a special way of making you wish airplanes had never been invented. So while the British may have perfected the art of grumbling over airport security, we have America to thank for making those queues possible in the first place. I'm not even being sarcastic.
What do
As for the world's inventions, this video series itself might be the greatest of all time. So stay tuned for part 3, and in the meantime, here's part 1. You'll watch...
Okay, my friends, show him all the support. Already watched this part 1. Just go to my YouTube page and put Inventions, and that video will appear, or you can watch, of course, the original one if you want. But yeah, this one was maybe even more impressive than the first one. I mean, the amount of inventions here, the tea bag thing basically ended up messing up my mind because that one is crazy. But yeah, thank you so much. See you guys in the next one. Bye, my friends.